When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left behind a note that simply said, "You'll figure it out." 12 years later, after I finally made it without them, they reached out, trying to reconnect. When I was 17, I came back to a completely empty house and a note sitting on the kitchen counter. It was the cruelest thing I'd ever read. It just said, "You'll figure it out." I didn't know what I had done wrong. I assumed they were just tired of pretending they loved me. But the truth? They had never even pretended. When I was 13, I made a birthday cake for my mom all by myself, only for her to call it clumpy. At 15, I spent hours tutoring my brother through finals, and all the while he called me a know-it-all and slammed his door in my face. At 16, I gave my entire paycheck to my dad to help cover bills, only to be yelled at later when I brought it up. He told me I was useless. I was always useful, just never loved. My parents and brother, my only family, had packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from the landlord a week later. I had 7 days to move out because they canceled the lease early. I crashed at a friend's place for 3 nights before I ran out of options. Eventually, I was sleeping in the back of a storage unit I rented with the last of my savings. I snuck in showers at the YMCA. I ate peanut butter with a spoon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I applied for jobs using free library computers and pretended everything was fine. Eventually, I got hired as a server for the night shift at a diner. The manager was gruff but fair. She paid me cash under the table until I got an ID. She even let me nap in the break room once when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion. I clawed my way through it. I bought a prepaid phone. I saved every receipt. I watched free YouTube tutorials on finance and goal setting. That first year, I barely survived, but I made it through. The turning point came when a regular at the diner offered me a temp job cleaning out office files. It paid 3 times what I was making. I said yes. That job led to another, and then another. I learned quickly. I showed up early. I asked questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business, just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, my own office, and a client roster that included companies I used to dream about. And by 29, I was officially a millionaire. Not an influencer millionaire. Not fake it for Instagram millionaire. A real one, with savings, a retirement account, no debt, a paid-off apartment, and health insurance I could actually afford. The first time I saw my bank app hit 7 figures, I cried. Throughout all those hard years, my family never reached out. Not even once. I saw my brother pop up in my suggested friends list once. He's married now, still living in the state they disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering if he told his wife about me. If he said I ran away. Or if he says nothing at all. Sometimes I still wonder if it would have been easier to just hate them. But honestly, it was never hate. It was heartbreak. I go to therapy now because I want to stay unbroken. I've made a list of people who saved me when they didn't have to, coworkers, classmates, strangers, people who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I did about surviving family estrangement went viral. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox filled with messages of support, gratitude, and strangers telling me I gave words to their pain. And then one email stood out. Subject line: "You're still our daughter." It was from my mom.
No επάλεγει.
Just a short paragraph about hearing my side and maybe we could talk. Then another message came, this time from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I sat with it and wondered, does healing mean looking back? Or moving forward? I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take at least a week before making any decision. "Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up," she said. "There's no rush." So I did. I focused on work. Went to the gym. Had dinner with friends. Normal stuff. But those emails haunted me. I kept opening them. Reading them. Closing them again. My mom's message felt cold. Clinical. Like she was writing to a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter, but somehow felt more genuine. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to reply to my brother first. Just something simple. "It's been 12 years. What changed?" Then I hit send before I could overthink it. His reply came within the hour. He said the podcast made him realize what they'd done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left me. That he didn't have a choice. That he'd always wondered about me. That he'd looked me up online a few times but never had the courage to reach out. That seeing me successful made him proud. I didn't buy it. Not completely. If he'd cared that much, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He admitted that money had been tight, that my parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, that medical bills were piling up. My stomach dropped. There it was. The real reason. I didn't respond for another week. Then my mom sent a follow-up email, with old family photos attached. Pictures of me as a baby. Pictures of us at the beach when I was 5 or 6. Me and Michael building a snowman. Happy moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. At the bottom she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa during our next session. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also said closure might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded along, but inside I felt torn. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part wanted to understand why. And a tiny stupid part of me still wanted them to love me. I decided to meet my brother first. Just him. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood when he saw me, awkward, uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat down with our coffees like strangers. The first 20 minutes were excruciating. Small talk about the weather, my flight, his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I was just a kid when it happened." He claimed he didn't know they were leaving me behind until it was too late, that he was too scared to stand up to them. I just listened, watching his face for signs of a lie. He seemed sincere, but I've been fooled before. So I asked the question that haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind? He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine. They thought you didn't need them as much as I did. They convinced themselves you'd be better off." It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA, working night shifts at 17. His face crumbled. "I didn't know. They told me you had a plan, that you chose to stay, that you'd live with a friend's family, that you wanted to separate. All lies." By the end of our meeting, I didn't know what to believe. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, told me about his job as an accountant, asked about my business. He didn't ask for money, which surprised me. When we parted, he hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. Just stood there, arms by my side, feeling nothing. Back at the hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She pointed out how he still framed himself as a victim, rather than owning his part in my abandonment. She was right. He'd been 15, not 5. Old enough to call. Old enough to send an email. Old enough to check on me at some point in 12 years. That night my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael must have. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Her voice was older, raspier. She cried when I said hello. Told me how proud she was. Said she always knew I'd succeed. How special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question. Why me? Her answer was different. We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart, you'd make it. We figured you'd go to social services. Maybe get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor. I hung up, blocked her number, threw my phone across the room and screamed into a pillow. The next morning I got an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. No apology, just a long message about their struggles, medical bills, failed businesses, Michael's wife needing surgery, eviction. And at the end he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life. Not a single acknowledgement of what they did. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line. And there it is. She called me immediately, even though it was Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about helping versus enabling, about what I truly wanted versus what I felt obligated to want. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed Michael, told him I was glad we met, that I understood he'd been in a difficult position back then, that I was open to having a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries, no money, no loans, no financial support, and no contact with our parents unless they took full responsibility. His response was immediate and revealing. I'm really disappointed, Emma. Our parents need help. Family should support each other. You're being selfish with your success. All the guilt buttons they'd programmed into me, pushed at once. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked a session with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to breathe. 3 days later, Michael left a voicemail. He apologized for his email, said he understood, said he still wanted a relationship, said he would respect my boundaries. I played the message twice, trying to figure out if he was being sincere or just shifting his strategy again. In the end, I gave him one last chance, but I wasn't letting my guard down. I still went to Bali. I spent 2 weeks soaking up the sun on the beach, hiking through rice terraces and meditating. I needed that distance from everything. When I got home, there were 6 emails waiting from my dad, each one more desperate than the last. I didn't even open them, just glanced at the subject lines. There was also a text from Michael asking if we could talk again. I agreed, but only to a phone call. That was my limit. First, the call was fine. He apologized again for pushing too hard and said he'd been reflecting on everything I said. He mentioned he'd even started therapy. I believed him. He sounded a bit different this time, less on edge. We chatted about his kids, my work. Small talk. Then he brought up our parents. Said they'd be visiting him soon and asked if I'd be willing to meet them, just for an hour in public. My chest tightened. I told him I wasn't ready. He gently pushed but backed off once he realized I wasn't budging. After the call, I booked a session with Melissa right away. She helped me unpack what I hadn't wanted to face. That beneath all the anger, I still longed for their approval. I still wanted to be loved by them. I hated how true that was. I cried for nearly an hour in her office. The next day, Michael messaged me again. Said our mom had been crying all night, and our dad was talking about driving to my city. Panic set in. I immediately blocked his number. Then I told my assistant I'd be working from home for the rest of the week, ordered groceries online, and basically went into hiding. By Wednesday, my doorman called. A couple downstairs was asking for me. They wouldn't say who they were, but I already knew. I told him I wasn't accepting visitors. A few minutes later, my phone rang, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my dad. "Emma, we drove 8 hours to see you," he snapped. "You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted it and powered off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on the door. I froze. My heart was racing. I peeked through the peephole. It was them, my parents, standing right there like they had any right to be. "Emma, please," my mom said through the door. "We just want to talk. We love you." "We're sorry," my dad added. I couldn't move. I sat against the wall, shaking, until they left. I called security right after and made it clear they weren't to be let up again. The guard asked if I needed the police. I told him no, just to keep them away. Then I called Melissa. She came during her lunch break, brought me food, and sat with me as I cried. She reminded me that I had every right to draw a line, that I didn't owe them anything. She called it what it really was, harassment, not reconciliation. Later, I got an email from Michael. He was furious. Said I'd humiliated our parents. Claimed they were stuck in a cheap motel they couldn't afford. Said his wife needed surgery and they were hoping I'd help. Accused me of being heartless. I didn't reply. The next morning, I booked a flight to Portland to visit Rachel, a friend who once gave me her couch when I had nowhere else to go. I trust her more than anyone. While packing, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, the doorman called. A woman downstairs was apparently having a medical emergency and asking for me by name. She said she was my mother. My stomach dropped. I told him to call an ambulance if needed, but I wasn't coming down. He sounded unsure but said okay. When I finally left, I carefully checked the lobby. No sign of them. I felt relieved but also weirdly guilty. The doorman looked uncomfortable. Said the woman had chest pains and was taken to Memorial Hospital. I just nodded and walked out to my Uber. At the airport, Michael called again. I hesitated, but this time, picked up. "Mom had a heart attack," he said through tears. "She's in surgery. This is your fault. You stressed her out." I hung up and called Melissa. She answered right away. I asked her if I was a terrible person. "Emma, no," she said firmly. "You are not responsible for her health. This is just more manipulation. Get on your plane. Take care of yourself." So I did. Rachel welcomed me with open arms. I told her everything. She remembered how broken I was after my family left me behind, and she was livid. "They don't deserve any space in your life," she said, pouring wine. "Not after what they've done." Felt good to be seen, to be believed. That Sunday night, I received another email from Dad. He said Mom was stable, had a stent put in, and would be released on Tuesday. Then he ended the email with, "She's asking for you. Haven't you punished us enough?" I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes. Classic guilt tripping, she said. I knew she was right. Still, part of me felt like maybe I was the problem. When I got home Monday, flowers were waiting at my door. The card read, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday. No sorry. No recognition of my boundaries, just another demand." I tossed the flowers down the trash chute. Tuesday morning, another message. Another unknown number. This time it was a photo, Mom lying in a hospital bed. Frail. Pale. The message said, "She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number. Called Melissa. She told me to take a break from social media. Maybe change my number, or go stay somewhere else. I agreed. I told my assistant I'd be working remotely for a while, and I packed again. But before I could leave, the doorman called. A young woman was downstairs with a child, asking for me. She said she was my sister-in-law. I felt trapped. But this time I said, "Send her up." When I opened the door, she looked exhausted. I bags tired eyes holding a sleeping toddler. "I'm Jenny," she said softly. "Michael's wife. I came alone. I just wanted to talk, without all the drama." I let her in, offered water. She laid the sleeping child on the couch and sat at the kitchen table. "I only found out about you 3 years ago," she started. "Michael said you ran away at 17. Cut off the family. It never really made sense to me, but I didn't ask questions. Then she told me she had listened to my podcast, that it shook her. She confronted Michael, and he finally admitted the truth. She didn't know what to believe at first. "I'm horrified by what they did to you," she said. "I asked Michael to reach out, but I didn't know they were asking for money. That wasn't my idea. Yes, I need surgery, but we're covered. It's your parents who are in financial trouble, not us." I asked her why she came. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she said. "Your parents have told everyone that you were unstable, that you stole from them and ran, that they spent years searching for you. All lies to cover their own guilt." I asked how she knew. She showed me Facebook posts from years ago. My mom asking for prayers for her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I took their savings. Posts about private investigators. Homeless shelters. All staged. All fake. And all long after they cut me off. Jenny looked apologetic. She said she confronted them herself. That when she threatened to tell the family, they admitted it all. Now they were panicking because the truth was coming out because of my podcast. Her daughter stirred. An adorable toddler with curly hair. "This is Lily," Jenny said. "She's 3. And I'm expecting another. I want them to know their aunt. But only if you want that too. No pressure. Just an open door." After she left, I sat in silence for hours. Then I called Melissa and told her everything. She wasn't surprised. "This is what abusers do," she said. "They rewrite the story. They make themselves the victims." Then she asked me the hardest question. "What do you want to do now?" And truthfully, I still didn't know. That night, another email came from Dad. But this one was different, angry and threatening. He said if I didn't take down the podcast and publicly apologize, they'd sue me for defamation. Claimed they had evidence I'd stolen from them. Threatened to go to the media with their side. And as if that wasn't enough, they said I owed them money for the damage to their reputation. I forwarded it to Melissa, then to my lawyer Marcus. He called me immediately. "This is empty threatening," he assured me. "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything but don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything, which I doubt they will. People who are really going to sue don't usually announce it first." The next day I got a call from Michael. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. "Emma, Jenny told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying awful things about her now too. I'm scared they're going to do something desperate. Please call me back." Use Jenny's phone, not mine. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I called Marcus again. He suggested I meet Michael and Jenny somewhere public, with him there as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I agreed reluctantly. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus' office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked terrible, stressed, exhausted. Jenny had a bruise on her arm she kept trying to hide. Michael couldn't make eye contact. "I'm Marcus, Emma's attorney," he said as we sat down. Michael flinched, but we all sat. Ordered coffee. And they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I imagined. My parents had been living off Michael for years. Moving in and out of his house, taking money for so-called emergencies, watching his kids while constantly criticizing his parenting. When Jenny confronted them about me, my dad grabbed her arm, hard enough to leave marks. Michael had kicked them out. They were staying in a motel now, calling constantly, even showing up at his job. I listened quietly, Watching my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his whole life. How they convinced him that I had abandoned them. How he'd been too scared to question their version of events. How he'd been stuck in their web of lies and manipulation for 12 years. How terrified he was they'd hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus asked careful questions about financial entanglements, house titles, bank accounts. About whether our parents had keys to the house. Michael answered everything. Said they'd co-signed his mortgage. That Dad was still on his bank account from college. That they had spare keys. That they knew all his passwords. Marcus took notes, occasionally glancing at me. By the end of the meeting I felt drained but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Michael and Jenny were victims too. Different from me but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own. Gave them a colleague's card. Told them to change their locks, their passwords, their bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Michael hugged me. This time I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. A shared recognition that we'd both been damaged by the same people. That maybe, somehow we could help each other heal. That night, I got a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my parents' numbers. Accusations, threats, guilt-tripping. I blocked them all. Then I called Jenny. Asked if they were okay. She said yes. They'd changed the locks. Stayed with friends the night before. We're looking into a restraining order. I felt relieved, but still worried. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was Jenny, hysterical. They broke into our house, she sobbed. They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, Michael's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family. I told her to call the police immediately. Said I'd meet them at the house. Then I called Marcus on the way. When I arrived, there was a police car outside. An officer was taking statements in the living room. The place was a mess, drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. Michael was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Jenny was pointing out missing items to the officer. I introduced myself, said I was family and there to help. The officer seemed skeptical that grandparents would break in. Are you sure they didn't just use a key? He asked. Maybe this is a misunderstanding? Jenny showed him her bruised arm. Told him about the escalation, the threats, the stalking. He took notes but still didn't seem convinced. Said without evidence, it would be hard to prove anything. After the police left, we cleaned up together. Found more missing things, photo albums, financial documents, the spare car key. Michael looked defeated. This is my fault, he said. I should have protected my family better. Should have stood up to them years ago. Should have looked for you harder. I didn't disagree. But I didn't pile on either. We were past that now. Marcus arrived as we were finishing. He looked around grimly. Said this changed everything. That we needed to document it all. That breaking and entering was serious. That we should all stay somewhere else for a few days. That he'd help us file for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded. Too exhausted to argue. Jenny packed bags for their family while Michael and I secured the house. Changed the locks again. Checked the windows. Talked about installing security cameras. It felt surreal taking these precautions against our own parents. But it was necessary. They crossed a line we couldn't ignore. As we were leaving, Michael got a text from Dad. Just 3 words. We're watching you. He showed it to me, hands shaking. I took a screenshot and sent it to Marcus. Then I made a decision. I told them they were coming to stay with me. My building had security cameras. A doorman who already knew not to let our parents in. They agreed, grateful. That night, the 4 of us sat in my living room eating takeout. Lily played with toys Jenny had packed. We talked softly, about next steps, restraining orders, police reports, changing phone numbers, moving if needed. About how to protect themselves long-term. It wasn't the family reunion I ever imagined, sitting there with the brother who let me be abandoned, his wife who had believed lies about me, and their child who was innocent in all this. But somehow it felt right. Like we were finally facing the truth together. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something from the ashes. The next morning Marcus called. Said he'd filed emergency restraining orders for all of us. That we'd need to appear in court next week to make them permanent. That he'd also reported the break-in to a detective he knew. Someone who was taking it more seriously than the officers who first responded. He told us to stay together until things were resolved. I agreed. Called my assistant. Told her I'd be working from home indefinitely. Family emergency. She understood. Rearranged my schedule. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Michael, who also needed to work remotely. Jenny and Lily took over the living room, building pillow forts and watching cartoons. It was strange having people in my space. I'd lived alone for years. Loved my quiet routines, my clean counters, my empty sink. But there was something comforting in the chaos too. Lily's laughter. Jenny humming softly while folding laundry. Michael typing in the other room. It felt like family, not the family that abandoned me, but maybe the family we could become. That afternoon the doorman called again. A delivery, flowers. I told him to check the card before bringing them up. He read it aloud. We know where you all are. This isn't over. I told him to refuse the delivery. Call the police if the delivery person wouldn't leave. Then I called Marcus again. He said it strengthened our case. That we were doing everything right. That he'd add it to the file. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny about the flowers. They were already under enough pressure. Instead, I ordered extra groceries. Made dinner for everyone. Played with Lily. Tried to bring some normalcy into this bizarre situation. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen. And finally let myself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the grief, and the strange flicker of hope. I cried silently into a dish towel so no one would hear. In the morning, Jenny found me making coffee. Asked if I was okay. I lied. Said yes. She didn't believe me. She sat down at the counter. It's okay not to be okay, Emma, she said gently. I'm not either. Michael cries in the shower so no one hears him. Lily keeps asking when we can go home. This whole thing is awful. But I'm grateful we're facing it together. I looked at her, this woman I barely knew now suddenly part of my life, and asked her why she came to me that day. Why she believed me over the family she'd known for years. She smiled sadly. I always felt something was off about your parents. About the stories. About the way they controlled Michael. The podcast just confirmed what I already suspected. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking abandoning a child was ever okay. We hugged then. Awkward but real. The beginning of something, not quite friendship. Not yet. But understanding. Solidarity. A shared vow to break the cycle of damage we'd all inherited. The next few days became a routine: working, cooking, playing with Lily, checking in with Marcus, jumping at strange noises, flinching when phones rang. We were safe but not yet at peace. Together but still healing. A family but still figuring out what that really meant. On Friday, Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence, security footage from a gas station near Michael's house. Their car had been parked there during the time of the break-in. The restraining order hearing was set for Monday. Marcus was confident we'd be approved. We all felt relief, but we were still on edge. Still waiting for what might come next. And it came that night. A brick through Michael's car window in the parking garage. No note this time. No need. The message was loud and clear. The building security footage showed a man in a baseball cap. Face turned carefully away from the cameras. We couldn't prove it was Dad. But we all knew. We filed another police report. Added it to our case. Tried not to let Lily see how scared we were. Sunday night, we sat down together and made a plan for court. What to wear. What to say. What evidence to bring. How to explain our family's history without sounding crazy. How to help the judge see the truth. How to protect ourselves legally, physically, emotionally. It felt surreal discussing our parents this way, like we were talking about strangers. Dangerous strangers who just happened to share our DNA. As we talked, my phone pinged with an email notification from my mom. Subject line: last chance. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. It was short, just one line. If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I showed it to Marcus, who had stayed for dinner. He took a screenshot and added it to our file. Told me not to respond. Said this kind of threat would only help our case. That night, none of us slept well. I kept checking my locks, listening for noises, wondering what my parents might do next. Wondering if we were overreacting. Wondering if we were underreacting. Wondering how my life had come to this. From abandoned teenager to successful businesswoman, to hiding in my own apartment from the people who gave me life. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. We dressed carefully, business casual, respectable, trustworthy. Jenny arranged for a friend to watch Lily. We drove to the courthouse in separate cars, just in case. Met Marcus on the steps outside. He looked confident, briefcase in hand. Told us he'd handled dozens of cases like this. That the evidence was strong. That judges took threats seriously. That we'd be protected. As we walked into the courthouse, I spotted them, my parents. Standing near the entrance, looking older than I remembered. Smaller somehow. My mom saw me first, started to move toward me. My dad grabbed her arm and held her back. They watched us pass. Didn't speak. Didn't try to approach. Just stared, with a mix of anger. And something else. Something that might have been fear. We filed past them into the building, checked in at security, Followed Marcus to the correct courtroom. Sat together on a bench, waiting for our case to be called. I could feel my parents enter behind us. Could sense them sitting on the opposite side of the room. Could almost hear their whispered conversation. But I didn't turn around. Kept my eyes forward. Focused on breathing. The judge called our case. We stood, walked forward, took our places. Marcus presented our evidence calmly. The break-in. The threatening texts. The flowers. The brick. The email. The history of abandonment and manipulation. The judge listened carefully, asked clarifying questions, looked at our parents with increasing concern. When it was their turn, my parents approached the bench. No lawyer, just them. My dad spoke first. Claimed we were exaggerating. That they were just trying to reconnect with family. That they'd never broken any laws. That they loved us and wanted to make amends. That this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. The judge asked about the security footage. The threatening messages. My dad denied everything. Said it wasn't them on the footage. Said their texts were being misinterpreted. Said they were the victims here, not us. My mom nodded along, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Then the judge asked them directly about abandoning me at 17. My dad hesitated. Started talking about troubled teens, difficult decisions, doing what they thought was best. The judge cut him off. Asked again directly. Did you leave your minor child alone and move to another state? My dad looked down. Mumbled something about financial hardship. The judge's expression hardened. After hearing both sides, the judge granted our restraining orders. 3 years. No contact. No approaching our homes or workplaces. No messages through third parties. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. My parents looked stunned, like they couldn't believe this was happening. Like they'd never faced consequences before. As we left the courtroom, my mom called my name, just once softly. I kept walking. Didn't look back. Felt a weight lifting with each step. Not healing. Not yet. But the beginning of it. The first real boundary that couldn't be crossed without serious consequences. Outside, Marcus shook all our hands. Said we'd done well. Said the orders were solid. Said to call him immediately if there were any violations. Said he was proud of us for standing up for ourselves. We thanked him, feeling dazed but relieved. Like survivors of a natural disaster blinking in the sunlight. Michael hugged me on the courthouse steps. A real hug this time. I'm sorry, Emma, he said, voice breaking. For everything. For not protecting you then. For not finding you sooner. For believing their lies. For bringing this chaos back into your life. I hugged him back. Told him we were going to be okay. That we had each other now. That we could build something new, something better. As we walked to our cars, I felt my phone buzz. A text from an unknown number. I almost didn't check it. But when I did, I felt a chill. It was a photo of Lily at her friend's house. Playing in the backyard, unaware she was being watched. Below it, just 4 words. This isn't over yet. I showed Michael the text immediately. His face went white. He called Jenny, who was already on her way to pick up Lily. I told them to meet us at my apartment. Then I called Marcus from the car. My hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He told me to forward him the text and drive straight home. Said he'd call the police and meet us there. Said this was a clear violation of the restraining order. Said to stay calm but vigilant. The drive back felt like it took forever. I kept checking my mirrors, paranoid my parents were following me. When I finally pulled into my building's garage, I sat in my car for a minute, just breathing. Trying to get my emotions together before facing Michael and Jenny. They needed me to be strong right now. I found them already in my apartment. Jenny clutching Lily like she might disappear. The poor kid looked confused and scared. Michael was pacing, running his hands through his hair over and over. I showed them the text. Jenny started crying. Said they'd been watching her baby. Said she'd never forgive herself if something happened to Lily. Michael put his arms around them both. Looking more determined than I'd ever seen him. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with 2 police officers. They took our statements. Looked at the text. Made some calls. Said they'd send a patrol car to the friend's house to check things out. Said they'd try to trace the number. Said they'd increase patrols around my building. All the right things. But I could tell. They didn't fully get how dangerous my parents could be. How unpredictable. How desperate. After the police left, we sat in my living room trying to figure out next steps. Jenny suggested going to a hotel under different names. Michael thought we should drive to his cousin's house a few states away. I just sat there, getting angrier by the minute. This was bullshit. We'd done everything right. Followed all the legal channels. Got our restraining orders. And they were still terrorizing us. Still controlling our lives through fear. I stood up suddenly. I'm done running, I said. Done hiding. Done letting them dictate how I live my life. They already stole my childhood. I'm not giving them my adulthood too. Michael looked at me like I was crazy. What are you planning to do? I honestly didn't know yet. But I knew we couldn't keep living like this. That night, we took turns keeping watch while the others slept. I took the first shift, sitting by my living room window with all the lights off, watching the street below. Around 2 a.m. I spotted a car I recognized, my dad's old Buick. It circled the block 3 times before parking across the street. I took pictures with my phone, then woke Michael. We watched together as our dad sat in his car, just staring up at my building, not approaching, not violating the restraining order technically, just letting us know he was there, watching, waiting. In the morning, I sent the photos to Marcus. He said it was concerning, but not technically a violation since my dad stayed in his car, away from the building. Said to keep documenting everything. Said he'd talk to the detective again. I hung up frustrated. The legal system had limits. Restraining orders were just pieces of paper. They couldn't stop someone who was determined. Jenny and Michael decided to take Lily to a hotel for a few days, somewhere with interior corridors and good security. I helped them pack, hugged them goodbye, promised to check in every few hours. After they left, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling strangely calm, like I'd reached some kind of decision point, like I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I called Melissa, told her everything, asked her what she thought I should do. She was quiet for a minute. Then she asked me a question that hit me hard. What do you actually want from your parents? Not what I didn't want, not what I was afraid of, but what I actively wanted. I realized I'd never really thought about it that way. After we hung up, I made a list: 1, to live without fear. 2, to have a relationship with my brother and his family. 3, to stop feeling responsible for my parents' actions. 4, to be free of the past. Nowhere on that list was reconciliation. Nowhere was forgiveness. Nowhere was understanding why they did what they did. I just wanted to be free of them. That afternoon I did something crazy. I emailed my parents. Just a short message. I know you're watching my building. I know you're not going to stop. So let's talk one last time. Tomorrow noon. The coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No police. No lawyers. After that, you leave us all alone. Forever. I hit send before I could change my mind. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny. Didn't tell Marcus or Melissa. This was something I needed to do. For myself. I wasn't naive enough to think my parents would suddenly become reasonable people. But I needed to face them on my terms. Needed to say my piece. Needed to end this cycle once and for all. My dad replied within minutes. Just we'll be there. No threats. No guilt trips. Just confirmation. I spent the rest of the day preparing. Not physically but mentally. Thinking about what I wanted to say. What I needed them to hear. What boundaries I needed to set. I slept surprisingly well that night. Like making a decision had lifted some weight off me. The next morning, I dressed with intention. Not to impress them, but to feel grounded. To feel strong. I took an Uber to the coffee shop and arrived 15 minutes early. I chose a seat in the back corner, one with a clear view of the door, but out of sight from the street. I ordered a coffee I didn't even want. And then I waited, surprisingly calm. They showed up exactly at noon, looking even older than they had in court. More drained. My mom saw me first and nudged my dad. They walked over slowly, like they were approaching something fragile. Something that might vanish if startled. Without saying a word, they sat down across from me. We just stared at each other for a long, heavy moment. These were my parents. And yet they felt like strangers. People who had shaped my life in ways they could never comprehend. I broke the silence. I didn't ask you here to reconcile. Or to offer you money. Or to listen to more excuses. I brought you here for one reason: to make something absolutely clear. It's over. You've lost. Not just the legal battle, you've lost me. You've lost Michael. You've lost your grandchildren. You've lost every opportunity to be part of our lives. And if you refuse to accept that, if you continue to stalk us, harass us, or try to force your way back in, I will destroy you. My dad tried to cut in, but I raised my hand to stop him. I'm not finished. Then I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots. Every threatening message, the photo of Lily, the emails. I've made copies. Sent them to everyone in your lives. Your church, your neighbors, your siblings, your employers. I haven't shared them yet. But I will, if you contact any of us again. If you come near our homes. If you even mention our names to people we used to know. My mom began to cry. We just want our family back, she said through tears. We made mistakes, but we deserve another chance. We're getting older. We don't want to die alone. I stared at her for a long time. You should have thought of that before you abandoned your 17-year-old daughter. Before you lied to everyone about what you did. Before you broke into Michael's house. Before you threatened your own granddaughter. Then my dad got angry. You're ungrateful, he snapped. You've always been difficult. You turned your brother against us. You owe us for raising you. I laughed, out loud. You really believe that? That I should thank you for doing the bare minimum as a parent for 17 years before leaving me behind completely? You think your parenting was so incredible that I should feel grateful for it? He didn't reply. Just sat there, red-faced, seething but silent. My mom was still crying, but I felt nothing. No guilt. No pity. Just a sharp, cold certainty these two would never change. They'd never take accountability. Never be the kind of parents I once needed. I stood up. This is your final warning. Next time you violate that restraining order, I won't just call the police. I'll make sure everyone around you knows exactly who you are. I have the means to make your lives very hard if you push me. I don't want to, but I will. To protect my family. My real family. Michael, Jenny, Lily. The ones I choose. As I turned to leave, my mom called out. Do you really hate us that much? I stopped and looked back. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you. You're strangers now. And that's your loss, not mine. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. I called Michael as soon as I hit the sidewalk and told him everything. He was upset at first that I'd gone alone, then concerned they might retaliate. But mostly he sounded relieved, like someone had finally stood up to them the way he never could. He told me he wished he'd had that strength years ago. I returned to my apartment, packed a bag, and decided to stay with Michael and his family at the hotel for a few days, just in case. When I arrived, Lily ran to hug me. Auntie Emma, she called me for the very first time. I nearly cried. Jenny hugged me, said she was proud of me. Said she hoped this would finally bring me peace. Michael just gave my shoulder a firm squeeze. No words necessary. The following days felt like a strange limbo. We stayed alert, waiting for my parents to retaliate. We checked our phones constantly. Jumped at every sudden noise. But nothing came. No messages. No calls. No emails. No signs of their car. Just silence. After a week, Michael and Jenny went home. They changed the locks again, installed more cameras, and started talking about selling the house. They even began searching for homes closer to my city. I went back to my apartment too, back to work, back to something that resembled a normal life. 2 weeks went by. Then a month. Still no sign of them. Marcus checked in often. Said the detective confirmed they'd returned to their home state. Said the restraining orders remained active. Said we should stay alert, but try to move forward. And so little by little we did. Michael found a new job in my city. Jenny enrolled Lily in preschool. They bought a house 20 minutes from my place. We started having dinner together every Sunday, creating new traditions, making new memories, building a new kind of family, not based on blood but on choice. I kept thinking I'd feel something about my parents. Maybe grief, or guilt, or rage. But mostly, I felt relief. Like I'd finally dropped the weight I'd been carrying since I was 17. Like I could finally see the road ahead without always glancing over my shoulder. 6 months after that final meeting at the coffee shop, I got a letter. It had been forwarded through Marcus, so they still didn't know my address. It was from my mom. I almost threw it away without reading. But curiosity won. It was short. Just a few paragraphs. No excuses. No manipulation. Just an acknowledgement that they had hurt me. That they had failed me. That they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them. That they were getting counseling. That they would respect the restraining orders. That maybe someday if I was ever open to it they'd like to offer a real apology. But they understood if that day never came. I showed the letter to Michael. He'd received one too. We talked about it over dinner. Wondered if it was genuine. Wondered if it changed anything. Wondered if we could ever let our guard down. We didn't make any decisions. Just promised to take it one day at a time. To focus on our healing. To keep protecting the life we were building together. I still keep that letter in my desk drawer. Not because I'm ready to forgive them. Not because I want to open the door to reconciliation. But because it symbolizes something important, that they finally acknowledged my right to draw the line. To protect myself. To choose who I let in. To define what family means to me. Last week Lily turned 4. Michael and Jenny asked me to help plan the party. We held it at my apartment. Balloons everywhere. A cake from an upscale bakery. Presents stacked on the coffee table. Lily running around in a princess dress, giggling. Jenny snapping photos. Michael manning the grill out on my balcony. Friends dropping by throughout the day. The apartment echoed with laughter and joy. At one point I stepped into the kitchen just for a breather. I looked through the doorway, saw Michael spinning Lily in the air, heard Jenny laughing with a friend. My once quiet home was alive, full of warmth, full of love. I thought about that note I'd written 12 years ago, the one I left on my kitchen counter. You'll figure it out. And I had. Not in the way they meant, but I had figured out what family really is, what love should feel like, what I'd always deserved. I'm not saying everything's perfect. I still have trust issues, still go to therapy every week, still get startled when the doorbell rings, still have the occasional nightmare about being left behind. But I'm healing. We all are. Taking the broken pieces and turning them into something new, something whole, something chosen, something real. People sometimes ask me, will you ever forgive them? Will you let them meet Lily someday? I don't have those answers yet. Maybe one day. Maybe never. What I do know is this: I am no longer defined by what they did to me. I'm defined by what I've created in their absence. By who I've become. By the family I chose.